TMZ is being fed false information about the David case. All right, so remember how last week TMZ came out saying they have an LAPD source giving them all this new information. David's officially a murder suspect. She was dismembered and she was found partially frozen, which I was a little skeptical about the partially frozen narrative because she was sitting in this car for weeks. But now LAPD captain is also saying TMZ is bullshitting. Stick around for the full video, hit subscribe, let's go boys. For the first time since LA police began investigating the gruesome discovery of a dead girl's body in the trunk of singer David's Tesla, a detective has characterized the probe as an investigation into murder, according to court documents. Seeking to prevent the release of autopsy findings, a LAPD detective told a court recently that the publication of details surrounding the death of the 14-year-old could jeopardize the investigation. LAPD detective Joshua Byers, a veteran of the Elite Robbery Homicide Division, filed a declaration on Friday that described their probe as a murder investigation. So we knew all this, right? Judge Craig Richmond granted LAPD's request and ordered the medical examiner's findings be sealed, which I understand. This is all for the investigation. They're trying to find someone that murdered this poor innocent girl. Up until recently, investigators have repeatedly declined to say whether they are calling the girl's death a homicide, and have said they were awaiting the conclusion of the County of Los Angeles medical examiner. Byers said that making autopsy findings public will reveal or tend to reveal the ongoing investigation and integrity of the investigation, as well as identify witnesses and or informants who are cooperating with law enforcement and the content of the information they have provided, which could endanger the lives of witnesses or compromise the investigation. Informants or witnesses that have obviously given up information. I mean, we all know these detectives have interviewed a bunch of people. That's common sense. But using the word informant is a very interesting word, like someone actually is snitching, almost. I mean, that's what that is. Judge ordered the declaration, supporting documents, and the clerk ordered sealed, be sealed and maintained in a secure location in the custody of the clerk. According to the medical examiner, the order barred the release of all details associated with the case, including the cause and manner of death and medical examiner report. But then the medical examiner doesn't seem happy about this. Watch this. Chief Medical Examiner Ode Ukpo, if I butchered that name, I apologize, seemed to question the wisdom of sealing his department's findings. Since becoming the department head, I've worked on eradicating the practice of placing security holds in medical examiner cases simply by law enforcement request. The practice of security holds is virtually unheard of in other counties and has not been proven to improve outcomes in the legal system. We are dedicated to serving our community with full transparency. However, the law precludes us from doing so while the court order remains in this case. LAPD first requested this on September 15th, a week after the body was found. The request was denied due to insufficient justification to warrant the hold. So it was initially denied. Interesting. The department understands the public's interest in this case and remains committed to transparency when possible. Information will be made available once the court order is lifted. The girl's remains were found inside a black bag in the trunk of the multi-platinum musician's Tesla. She weighed 72 pounds and had the shush tattoo on her finger, and her body was found the day after her 15th birthday. LAPD Captain Scott Williams said the girl had been dead for at least several weeks before the discovery. I mean, we now know it's pretty much confirmed she was dead for months. Around January or February is what it seems like of 2025. And here's where things get really interesting. Williams on Monday stated that the body had not been decapitated and not been frozen as some media outlets have reported. Huh? So TMZ, whatever source they have telling them all this information recently, is either wrong or this captain is lying, which I would doubt he would do that publicly saying this because it's going to come out at some point. But this sounds like TMZ is getting bullshit fed to them from some source that is just wrong. Investigators believe that more than one person was involved in the effort to dispose of the teen's body in the months before her remains were found in the Tesla. She may have been dead since the spring, according to one law enforcement source. I only said January, February because the last picture of her was, I think, January 2nd or something, like early January. Deputy Chief Alan Hamilton says, accountability is coming. Our RHD detectives have been working and not waiting for that decision. They're going to get justice for Celeste Rivas. No one is off the table, including David. Now, Steve Fisher, the private investigator, has been tweeting a lot about this. I trust this guy way more than anything that TMZ has reported because he's been very close to this investigation, behind the scenes, talking to people. I mean, he's hired by the landlord of the house that David was living in. His first tweet that got me concerned was just saying wrong. And then he said watching a rag tabloid get trolled would be hilarious under almost any circumstance besides at the expense of a teenager. And here's where he starts to talk about the whole frozen body side of things and the decapitation that TMZ put out recently. I'm not going to use anyone's name, but it will be pretty obvious what I'm referring to. If that violates anything and someone feels I need to be arrested, then honestly being locked up without a phone and a computer sounds like a dream vacation right now. Freezing a body completely halts the decomposition process. It freezes the liquid inside the tissues and prevents bacteria from spreading, which is required for decomposition. There are people on Mount Everest who have been above the ground for decades and are still preserved. Morgues use refrigeration to slow decomposition for this exact reason. Saying a pathologist cannot make a determination because a body was frozen is completely out of touch with basic science. A medical medical examiner would prefer for a body to be immediately frozen because it becomes a time capsule. Medical students trained for surgery on cadavers. Bodies are routinely frozen and thawed for educational and surgical training. A screenshot and attached messages from 2 medical professionals discussing the process of moving a body from a -4-degree freezer into a 39-degree refrigerator, and the body was fully thawed in 4 days. So in just 4 days, this body was thawed out, and that's in a 39-degree refrigerator. Another professional notes that a fully deep frozen body will thaw in 48 to 72 hours when done in a controlled setting, not in a hot frunk. So how could a body still be partially frozen after sitting in a frunk for months? That's something I was confused about when TMZ reported this. How are they saying this body was partially frozen still? This body was in this car for months. Like, what are we doing here? It just makes no sense. It defies logic. If you want to change the timeline now, fine. Let us say a body was placed there on the day after the park enforcement officer first ticketed the vehicle. We know from the tire chalking that the car never moved. That is 13 to 14 days before the body was found in the Tesla frunk. And people actually believe TMZ when they say the body was still partially frozen when it arrived at the medical examiner's office. What the actual fuck? Right now the choice is between science and TMZ. And it is shocking how many people are choosing TMZ. This is the same outlet that has published breaking news today saying that the house has a refrigerator and freezer in the kitchen, an appliance that every house has. He's not wrong. I didn't know about this. House David rented had a freezer. What are we doing, TMZ? Water is wet. What house doesn't have a freezer? And they show a picture from the rental of the home with a big freezer or fridge in the kitchen. Every house, especially big homes in LA and the hills like this, have these big ass Titan refrigerators that are like 20 grand, dude. This is not newsworthy. Mind you, we do not know if the police have zeroed in on this freezer. But as we first reported, the body was partially frozen when it was found. This is after an extended period of time in David's trunk in August, when it was hot in LA. This makes no sense, TMZ. None of this makes sense. Your source is bullshitting you. Clear as day. And then there's a video going around of David, a TikTok, with like a freezer box in the background. And this is from September of 2024. That's a small ass box, bro, of a freezer. I mean, and she was seen alive months after this. So I don't think this freezer that's going viral on TikTok has any connection to this case at all. It's just so obvious to me that TMZ is being bullshitted by this source. It is also important to note that medical examiner put this on their website after finding the body and before identifying her. They used her and she in the statement and said she was severely decomposed, and also said she appears to have been deceased inside the vehicle for an extended period of time before being found. So I'm sticking with the ME's office over TMZ. Here's the official complete statement. The decedent was found severely decomposed inside the vehicle on 9/8/25. She appears to have been deceased inside the vehicle for an extended period of time before ever being found. We're unable to determine her age or race or ethnicity. The decedent was wearing a tube top and black leggings, size small. Jewelry includes yellow metal stud earring and with yellow metal chain bracelet. So you're telling me that someone supposedly went to such an extreme that they severely cut up her limbs, as TMZ claims, yet the yellow metal chain bracelet somehow stayed on her wrist. Very good point. If you're cutting up this body and trying to get rid of it so no one ever finds it, are you going to keep a bracelet on the wrist of that body so they could be identified potentially? No. So that leads me to believe that she was never cut up and she was just decomposing like we initially thought for months. And they supposedly did all this so she could not be identified, but they left identifying items like her bracelet and earring, which can be tied back to photos of her and to whoever purchased them. They also left the leggings and tube top, which would now be a collection of cloths for DNA of the person or person responsible. They supposedly went to these lengths but did not strip her for identifying clothes and jewelry. Exactly. I don't think that she was partially frozen when found. That makes no sense. There's just a lot of clear red flags to me with that whole timeline of her being frozen and not frozen. At this point, we just have to wait for an arrest. I feel like it's coming. I really hope it does. Comment down below what you guys think. Hit subscribe. Love you guys. Peace out.